Before we start, I just wanted to thank you for tuning in. And if you're enjoying my content and would like to support, then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel or leave a comment. Or if you're listening, then you can rate and review the One Day Podcast on Apple Podcast. This stuff really helps and allows my content to reach a wider audience.
In one race, I also won my first race weekend in karting, and I realized my competitors disliked me after. Like, I was always alone, they would always be in groups together talking, and I was always left out.
Why is that the case? Because you won, and they were pissed at that.
I think it's because I won and because I'm a girl.
This is the One Day Podcast. My name is Omar Al-Majali, and each week I am bringing you some of the most accomplished and inspiring minds in the Middle East and the world to give you a glimpse of their professional life and pull back the curtain a bit on the real and untold story of their success, to inspire you and help you learn from those who have walked the walk so you could move one day closer to your own goals. Hope you enjoy this episode. This is the One Day Podcast, and with us today is a very cool guest. She's a 21-year-old Emirati girl who is forging the path for female Arabs to enter the motorsports world. Amna Al Qubaisi is the first Emirati female racing driver who, inspired by her father's passion in the sport, began her karting career at the age of 14, and soon after became the first female Arab to participate at international racing competitions, claiming top 10 finishes. Fast forward a few years, Amna began competing with the big boys and racing in big arenas. She won the F4 trophy race at Yas Marina in 2019 and became the first woman to stand on the top step of the podium in an F1 supporting series. And earlier this year, Amna made her F3 debut. And today, we're going to go behind the helmet to get a full scoop into Amna's journey so far. Welcome, Amna.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, Amna, my typical first question is, did you ever think that you would be here one day? Did you ever think that you would take on this path, be where you are?
No, with all honesty, I just started out racing as a hobby, and I never knew I would reach the level of competing in single seaters and even winning a race in single seaters. So this was all like a surprise to me.
Nice. So you did not anticipate or plan for this. It just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we'll start with just educational content for the audience or for whoever is not maybe knowledgeable with the racing sport world. Can you break down to us F3, F4, F2, F1? Just give us a very high level view into that, just to set the context, since you are, making your way into these races.
So Formula One is the pinnacle of motorsport. It's the main one. And of course, the high speed, the downforce, the car, everything is high, everything is extreme and elite. So they started off people from Formula 4, which is smaller, less heavy. It has not as much of a downforce as an F1, and it's not as fast as F1. And then slowly F3, that's when the speed picks up, the downforce increases, the car gets heavier. And then F2, that's when it's the most extreme level. That's almost close to F1 in terms of speed. And then you have the pinnacle F1, which is every car has its own engine or its own racing team, everything is by the teams themselves.
Nice. And you have already participated in an F4 and you won the race, right, in 2019. And now I think you've debuted your F3 kind of participation this year, right?
Yes, I've done F3 this year, my first season in F3 after 1 year of no racing. So
yeah, of course, because of last year. And I mean, it's a man's world, isn't it? I mean, are there a lot of female racing drivers other than you who are typically present at those races, or not so much the case?
It's the season was taken here in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and at the same time was the F4 season. So it was me and my sister who were competing.
Nice.
And there was one more girl who also competed, but it's very rare to see females in a single seater race.
Great. I think we're gonna get to that, and we're gonna get also to how it's a family affair. Because your sister and your sister is, in the process also of, making her career into this, and her father was passionate about it. Do you think that you would you have gotten into that sport if it wasn't for your father's passion and you growing up, kind of watching him in the tracks?
I think if I haven't seen my father, racing or doing motorsport in general, I wouldn't have pursued it. I was more into, gymnastics, ballet on that side. But then when I saw him, I was like interested because it's different, it's unique, it's something I've never seen here in the country before. So that's when I pursued it.
The suggestion came from you, so you one day were like, Baba, I just want to get into the sport, or was it influenced by him, or how did the conversation happen?
Oh yeah, it's actually I went up to him, I was like, I want to get into this sport.
And was
And
he supportive?
yes, he was very supportive. I also overheard him talking about opening an academy here in the UAE to train locals to get into the racing field because
Nice.
back then it was my father.
Ah.
So I overheard him and I was pushing him, to start this academy. And then surprisingly, they were picking out people who had fast laps in karting tracks. And they picked up my name and they called my father. Oh, do you know this girl, Amna Al Qubaisi? She's quick. We want to have her in the academy. And my dad was like, oh, that's my daughter.
Well, that happens to be my daughter. Yeah. طيب, yeah, your father was a racer himself, صح? Because your father has won like a major competition in France, right? The 24-hour Le Mans or something like that. What is that race that your father has won in?
He has won in the 6 hours of Mexico.
Mm,
It was a 6 hour endurance race. He won
okay.
that. And in Le Mans, 24 hours of Le Mans, he was the first local and Arab
Arab
person
person.
to be on the podium of 24 hours of Le Mans, which is the toughest, most prestigious endurance race in the world.
Definitely runs in the blood. Where did your mom stand in all of this? Was she supportive, or was she maybe scared because it's not it's a relatively dangerous sport. It is.
My mom is always supportive. She always took me to racing. She took me to training. She was always there standing by my side. Obviously, it's something really scary for my mom, but she knows how much I love the sport, and there are a lot of safety measures in the track as well and in the car, so it's much more safer than driving on the highway.
Hmm.
So the racing gear, there's a lot of runoffs on track. In case you do a mistake, there's a runoff, and
Yeah.
there's marshals in case you do get into an incident. People will immediately come and help you. So
Mm, nice. So that seems to be, to a large extent, your career or your direction. What career do you think you would have been in, or maybe sport choice that you would have been in, if not racing?
Honestly, if it wasn't for racing, I don't think I would still be in a sports.
In a
I would
sport?
still be involved in sports,
Okay.
but I would be more in the educational side, like go to universities abroad, start working or something. But now with racing, it kind of gave me opportunities to start, my own brand, to start collaborating with companies, with brands. So the racing field has helped me a lot in terms of starting up businesses and collaborations.
Nice. So it has open doors.
Mhm.
Amazing. I'm sure that since you have started this, or you entered this racing world back in when you were at the age of 14, and you literally have, to a great degree, grown up with the sport. And I'm sure that the sport has contributed to your personal development a lot, and has, and those wheels and those tracks must have taught you something or two about maybe diligence and perseverance. How do you feel like the sport has contributed to your growth, or to who Amna is today?
Um, I used to be the quiet person. Like in school, I wouldn't talk much. I wouldn't stand up for myself. I was always quiet. But I feel like racing really built me into becoming aggressive, into becoming a stronger person. It shaped me as a person today. So yeah, I think racing has played a huge impact in my personality wise.
Nice. I'm sure that your friends back in high school thought that it was really cool that you were doing this professionally.
Yeah, they were interested in it, but they thought it was like, some sort of joke
Uh,
because they didn't really think motorsport was that serious.
right.
And then till after like my achievements, then they realized, oh, this is
This
something
is
that is
legit.
serious.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What message, Amna, do you have for girls out there who have a passion towards a sport, and this sport could be an aggressive sport or maybe not an aggressive sport, but they have, they feel intimidated by it or they feel like they're shy to explore it. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to always give it a try. You never know. Maybe you will enjoy it more than anything. You might not enjoy it, but it all depends on the person. So I would say, to give it a try. If you do enjoy it, the country has a lot of karting tracks available, races available, even abroad, your local car track, they host races. So,
Hmm.
pursue that and take it to the next level.
Were you personally ever intimidated that you were entering this world? Have you ever had an encounter where you thought I'm in the wrong place, in the wrong sport because it's all boys around me and the big boys essentially. And again, it's not the most safe sport out there.
Actually, I've never felt intimidated when I started. I was always the less prepared driver when coming into a race, and that really irritated me as I never had the same amount of mileage as my competitors. So that was always one thing that always intimidated me. But other than that, I was driving, racing is my therapy, instead of going to a therapy session, I'd go to the racetrack. So
That's so interesting. It's so interesting how how a sport becomes like some sort of a meditation tool for a lot of professional athletes. I interviewed Amna Al Haddad, who I don't know if you know her. She's an ex-Olympic weightlifter, also a girl just like you who kind of defied social norms by tapping into uh, a masculine sport, quote unquote. And she told me how when she would, the second her she would touch the bar as if she would be in a state of flow and she would like not hear anyone. She would just get into the zone. It's extremely interesting how a sport has that effect on you.
yeah, it does. Surprisingly, like my brother, he does kickboxing.
Yeah,
He treats that as therapy towards him,
for
releasing
sure.
the stress. Yes. So yeah, it's really interesting. Something I never realized till like early on. I was more calm on track than I was back home.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you mentioned something. You mentioned that you were intimidated in the beginning because the other guys or your competitors they had more mileage. Is that because you had a late start to the sport, or
Yeah, I had a late start and I didn't have enough budget to practice on track. The rest of my competitors, they've been, for example, in Formula 4, all of my competitors have at least been testing Formula 4 for a year, and I had
Mm.
just 2 days to practice.
Oh
And
wow.
then, yeah, and then I go straight into the race weekend. That always irritated me, and it really, really affected me, like
Wow.
mentally.
Yeah.
I would always I would always start crashing, going into incidents, causing problems. I would
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it was because I knew that I was good. I knew I was good enough. Um, with only 2 days practice, I was already in the mid pack, doing better than the ones who had more mileage than me. So yeah, I was always irritated by that.
Yeah. I can imagine. And you said that whenever you would feel irritated, you would crash or do something. Because I'm assuming it's a sport of high focus. Like the second you lose that focus, or you just you surrender to a negative thought, you're just it affects you automatically.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Crazy.
And Formula 3 was happening a lot to me for 1 year, no racing, and I'm completely new to the car. I've never driven it before, and I went straight into the race weekend, and it was not the best season for me, but in pace wise, it was really good.
I'm sure that I'm judging from the passion you have for it. You're gonna achieve everything. Hopefully, you set your mind to. I'm not. whenever you have maybe a race to prepare for or some sort of a project that you're working on and you want to get into the zone, do you have any sort of ritual or system that you follow to help get you in the zone? And that's a question, by the way, I like to ask all my guests just to see what are the different systems or things that people follow out there to be more focused.
For me, I always wake up early. I try to wake up early. I do my skincare routine and then I listen to like calm music, and that would help me, slowly focus.
Nice.
Music really, really helps me in terms of focus.
Nice. Yeah. And listening to something calming in the morning or doing something you like is extremely beneficial because it sets the tone for the day. Um,
Yes, for
a
sure.
lot of us are so attached to our phones that the first thing we do when we wake up is check our emails or plug into the world and what the world is asking for us. And that sometimes that stresses us out. So I'm very pro having you owning your morning and doing it like having a ritual in that first hour at least of the day for you.
Yeah, I completely agree. My phone, I turned off all notifications, Instagram, WhatsApp, emails, everything. I closed notifications so I wouldn't have to
Good.
like open my phone.
That's a good strategy. That's a good strategy. So, what kind of preparations go into each race? Because I want people to understand that every professional sport, there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears that go into it. People or media, we typically celebrate the successes, but we never know what really goes on when you're alone and all the effort that goes into it. Give us maybe just a brief overview of how does that look like for you?
For me, like when it comes to preparing for a race weekend, 2 weeks before the race, I would train constantly in the gym 2 hours. I would also start eating healthy, trying to get into good habits. I would delete all my social media accounts so that I wouldn't have to absorb people talking about the race and applying pressure on me, because that plays a huge role in my mind. So I would delete all of that. And then towards the race day, we would always come in early, meet our new engineers, meet our team, our mechanics, do a track walk, and then we would spend like from 8 a.m. to sometimes 10 p.m. at the track just
Oh,
trying to get everything sorted before the race day.
that's like a day before the race typically.
Yes.
So you said you go to the gym. Why do you go to the gym? How is the gym related to a sport like this?
So people think in Formula 4, 3, and 2 that there is power steer.
Right. What is a power steer?
Power steer is when you have like the front steering
Ah,
wheel helping
yeah,
you.
yeah, yeah. Like having grip on that.
It helps you with the weight, so you
Ah,
don't feel front weight. So
nice.
yes, so Formula 3 and Formula 4 and 2, they have extreme heavy weight, a lot of caster at the front, and that really affects your shoulders and your neck and your arms. It's really, really heavy. Like if I couldn't handle 5 laps because of how heavy it was my first time.
Oh, that's
So
such an interesting aspect to the sport that I'm sure that a lot of people don't think of. Because when you're in the
yeah,
sport, you think it's a cool adrenaline rush, but actually, there's this physical toll from the steering wheel.
yes, it's extremely heavy. Anyone who wants to try a Formula 3 car can go for it, and they could experience that themselves, that it's an extremely heavy car. The brakes as well, you need to slam the brakes with a lot of pressure, and sometimes even with a lot of pressure, it's not high enough.
So you need a lot of leg muscle as well for that.
And also the G-force for the neck and fast corners.
Uh,
Yeah, it's a lot of it's a lot of physical stuff included.
it's a lot of physical stuff included. I can only imagine. In one of your interviews, you mentioned, Amna, that everybody loves you until you become the competition. And could you elaborate more on what you mean by this? And do you find this statement to be true outside the realm of sport?
I said that before a while ago during my karting, when I won the karting championship. In one race, I also won my first race weekend in karting, and I realized my competitors disliked me after. Like, I was always alone, they would always be in groups together talking, and I was always left out.
Why is that the case? Because you won, and they were pissed at that.
I think it's because I won and because I'm a girl.
Ah, so
So
you won them, and they said that they felt like there's a shame when a girl wins. Although I think a sport is a sport, it doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl. Okay, interesting. So you don't think that because I thought that it was an intriguing statement. Everybody loves you until you become competition, which is true. Until you become a competition to them, then the game changes.
exactly, yes, it's a game changer towards them.
Yeah. Did you ever think at any point during your journey that I'm not good enough for the sport? This is not for me. I'm in the wrong place, as I mentioned, or like maybe thought of giving up.
Many times it's happened. It happened in karting, in Formula 4, even this year in Formula 3. Many times I had this thought, like, I think I'm not good enough. Everybody's seeming to do better. I was faster than this guy. I was faster than that guy. All of a sudden, he's running top five. So many times I would think that, but I would always have my father talking to me like, you haven't been racing for over a year. You need to just calm down. You need to settle down. It's not like we're not letting you have any pressure to win something. You're not here to win. You're here to take it as practice, as like getting back into the rhythm. So then I would start to calm down. But then again, I would come back. I'd also see, people on social media, oh, she's not doing well. Oh, her dad just has money. Oh, a lot of that affects me. A lot of that affects me. So that's when I start getting these thoughts.
How do you cancel out the noise of the haters? By the way, your haters are your bigger fans. Trust me.
Yeah. Yeah, they're like criticizing fans, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't really care anymore. I got used to it now. It's something now I cannot change. People will always say something about you, even if you're doing well. So even if you're on the podium, they'll always have something else to say. So
Listen,
I
people
just
will have something to say about you, whether you're doing well, not doing well, or not even doing anything. So it's better to be relevant than not to be relevant.
exactly.
So you mentioned that your father would always calm you down, and I know that your father, at some point, maybe earlier in your racing career, he was your coach, right? How did you guys draw that relationship or draw the line between him being your father and him being the coach? Because the father role is more nurturing, and then there's the coach who wants to push his student. How did your father manage to balance that?
Yeah, in the beginning, like during his free time, like in the weekends, he would take me to our local home racing track, karting track, and he would coach me from there, like normal coaching. And then as soon as I entered an academy, I had my own personal coaches. But then as I evolved into F4 and F3, I had engineers. I didn't have a personal coach. I would more so try to self-learn and have my engineers, pinpoint me a few things, and that's it. I was just self-learning.
So you were self-learning, but when your father was involved, was there ever like an interesting dynamic going on? Like he's your father, but your coach, or he's the one who's maybe pushing you, but at the same time,
He would be more supportive. Like he would watch the live timing, the live stream. He
yeah,
couldn't really involve himself a
ah,
lot because it's
it's better.
different.
It's better
He
that way.
does GT cars. He does GT cars, and I'm in the single seater, and they're both very different in terms of handling the car. So all he would tell me, oh, you're losing time here compared to this driver. You're losing time there compared to this driver. So he would just give me like small pinpoints of something that's related, that's in the middle between GT and single seater.
Cool. And what's the biggest lesson you learned from your father? Maybe the biggest piece of advice that sticks with you that your father, since he was involved somehow in the process. What?
Um, yeah, he always told me, you need to always be relaxed. You need to always be calm and not to make quick decisions, quick silly decisions when you're angry.
Yeah.
So that sticked on with me for a while.
No, don't be too much maybe in your head a lot. Nice. And you also mentioned that your sister is involved in racing as well, and you guys typically compete, or I'm not sure how often you guys compete, but when you guys are competing, is it like every man, every woman for herself? Or are you sometimes thinking it's my younger sister, maybe I'll cut her a bit of a slack?
I mean, when it's on track, there is no sisters, nothing. No, no best
There's no
friend, no,
blood.
nope. It's all for yourself, every driver for himself. And I think that's all part of the sport. Everybody wants to win. Everybody's hungry for being ahead, being fast. So when it comes to racing, I remember in karting, we were both in the same category. We were on and on fighting, like overtaking each other every corner. It was insane. It was really crazy.
And do you
Um,
guys take the race back home? Like, do you guys fight over it?
so we would fight in the car and the dinner table. Waking up when we see each other, we was just on go arguing. So
So how do you navigate this passion towards the sport without having it affect your family dynamics or relationship? How do you do that?
my dad made a rule: what happens on track stays
Stays
on
on
track.
track. 100%.
Don't take it personal.
100%.
Yeah.
Who do you think your father roots for more? That's a mean question. I don't know if there's an answer to it, but
No.
honestly,
I think no, it's equal actually. My
equal.
father supports the both of us at the same time. Of course, he says I'm aggressive, my sister is smooth. If we put both of our
Ah,
qualities together, we would be a perfect driver.
nice. That's a cool way to put it. So we talked about maybe the best advice that you were given by your father. Have you ever been given a bad advice from anyone? And you're like, oh wow, what a bad advice.
No, usually like I when somebody tells me something that I see is irrelevant or something that's silly, it just goes in one ear and leaves the other. Like I even forget about it.
Nice. That's the good strategy. Trust me, it'll get you so far in life. Okay, Amna, wow, what an awesome conversation. We're coming to the end of our episode, and typically I like to conclude my conversations with 3 rapid fire questions. I never share those with my guests. That's by design because I just want you to answer the question, top of your head. I don't want you to overthink it. Just give me whatever comes to your mind when you first hear the question. So the first question is, what piece of advice would you give your younger self? I know that you are already young, but what piece of advice you would give yourself, your 6 year younger self?
I would say to keep on persisting and to listen and to always follow the steps. I used to always do things by my own self, but I should have listened to people's advice, people's steps, and go along with it.
Nice. Cool. And when it comes to the sport itself, right? Or to life in general?
Life in general.
Life in general. So listen to advice when you get it. What is the one tip or hack that you would give anyone out there who is trying to accomplish some goal? And you think that when you give them this tip or this hack, it will get them closer to that goal, even if it was one day closer to that goal, what would that tip be?
I would ask like I wouldn't ask, I would say like how I take things, fake it till you make it, you know? So if you have that thought in your head that you already have it, that you already got it, it's like manifestation. It's like you're gonna get it either ways. So it's always trying to manifest that and not just sit there and say, oh, I'll also work for it, push
Mm.
harder, push people around you harder.
So never like if you have a dream or a passion, you're saying like never just put it on the shelf. Always have it in front of your eyes, and you never know how it's gonna manifest if you maybe do the necessary steps towards achieving it. Nice advice. The final question we have is, what is it that you wish to accomplish one day? And the sentence starts with one day I would like to, or one day I would wish I can.
One day I would like to make a bigger difference. I would like to leave this world knowing that I've done something, something for the people, something there that's helping everybody. I would like to make a name for myself in a good way.
Nice. Nice. I'm sure that you will because at such a young age, Amna, you are, having you're playing with the big boys, playing in a very competitive sport. You're at odds because relatively speaking, you're a female and it's a male dominated sport. And you're learning all these life lessons at such a young age. So I'm sure that hopefully at some point in your life you'll be able to serve better from all the lessons that you're learning. And by the way, you're already inspiring a lot of girls out there, I'm sure, by just doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It really means a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome, Amna and Jad. Thank you so much for your time and for everything that you shared with us today. As I said, I'm sure that's inspiring a lot of girls out there who are either shy or intimidated to go after what they want, whether it's a sport or a passion or whatever. Where can people find you on social media?
On Instagram, my Instagram is open, and on Twitter and TikTok, I use these three social medias.
And your Instagram is Amna Al Qubaisi, right?
Yes, Amna Al Qubaisi _ official.
Underscore official. Amazing. Thank you again, Amna,
Thank you so much.
and hope to see you soon. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you were able to pick up a thing or two that could help you in business or life. If you would like to hear more conversations like these and you're not yet a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe through your preferred podcast platform. And follow us on Instagram at oneday.thepodcast. And you could reach me on my personal Instagram account at @almajali. And last but not least, if you prefer to watch the full episode on video, then you can do so on our YouTube channel, One Day the Podcast. Till next time.